My name is Dorian Thatch. I'm 34 years old, and I work as a freelance data analyst in Seattle, the kind of person people quietly label as reserved, methodical, observant, always calculating behind a calm exterior. They're not entirely wrong, but they don't realize that growing up in a fractured household taught me the power of patience, of watching and waiting until people revealed who they truly were. When I was 10, my father, Edward, remarried, and with his new wife, Lynette, came her son, Henry, who was 8. Suddenly, we were a picture-perfect blended family on the outside. 2 parents, 2 boys, 1 home. But behind closed doors, roles were assigned without a word. I became the self-reliant one, the quiet fixer, while Henry, delicate and needy, was coddled as the eternal child. The imbalance began early and only sharpened with time. At 12, Henry wanted guitar lessons and got them immediately, while at 14, when I asked to join the debate team, my father brushed it off with, "You're smart enough to figure out yourself, son." Henry received new clothes every season. I learned to stretch mine until seams wore thin. When Henry struggled in math, they hired a tutor at $60 an hour, yet I taught myself calculus from library books because, as Lynette often reminded me, I was so self-sufficient. I never argued, never erupted. I simply observed, adapted, and buried expectations. By 16, I'd stopped hoping for fairness and started preparing for anything. I got a job at Best Buy, saved obsessively, and paid my own way through community college before transferring to the University of Washington. Henry, meanwhile, had a fully funded college account, $35,000 meticulously saved by our father. Still, I kept coming home on holidays, clinging to the fading notion of family, even when reality had long contradicted it. That December 2023, I was 32, established, living alone in Capitol Hill, while Henry, 25 and perpetually underemployed, had been sighing about needing a new car for months after his Honda Civic died. Christmas morning arrived with its ritual chaos. Lynette's cinnamon rolls, a perfectly trimmed tree, and Henry's pile of gifts towering over mine as usual. I brought thoughtful presents, a leather portfolio for Dad, a silk scarf for Lynette, wireless earbuds for Henry. Then came the moment. Dad filmed as he told Henry to check the garage. And when Henry opened that door to see a brand new 2024 Honda Civic, metallic gray with a red bow, he burst into tears. Lynette cried. Dad swelled with pride. It was a $26,000 spectacle of love. Then it was my turn. My father, grinning, handed me a small envelope and joked, "Don't say we never give you anything, Dorian." Inside was a single $2 Powerball ticket with a post-it note from Lynette. "Maybe you'll get lucky, huh?" Smiley face. Laughter erupted. Even Henry, wiping his happy tears, joked about the contrast. His car, my lottery ticket. I laughed with them. But something frozen settled in me, something forged over 22 years of dismissal. I folded that ticket and tucked it into my wallet, memorizing the moment, the golden child versus the afterthought. They didn't know I'd never forget. 3 months later, in March 2024, while cleaning my desk, I found that ticket and, on a whim, checked the numbers. First number matched. Second, third. By the 6th, my hands trembled. I had won $134 million. I did nothing for hours, staring at the ticket, cross-verifying on every official source. The jackpot was real, unclaimed, and mine. The first call I made was to my lawyer, not a family acquaintance, but Jennifer Walsh, a corporate attorney I'd worked with, someone discreet and ruthless. "Jennifer, I need a blind trust. Today." She hesitated only long enough to ask, "Lottery?" before saying, "I'll meet you in 2 hours. Tell no one." By Monday, the Cascade Holdings Trust claimed the prize on my behalf. After taxes, I received $72 million. I invested $65 million across 3 firms, kept $4 million liquid, and rebuilt my life with the remaining $3 million. But here's the truth. Wealth doesn't change your nature. It magnifies it. I remain unseen, steady controlled. I stayed in my modest Capitol Hill apartment, drove my 2019 Camry, continued freelancing. To my family, nothing had changed. They still believed I was the overlooked observer, the quiet shadow. What they didn't realize was that the shadow had become the storm. I was still the same responsible, independent Dorian, earning a modest living analyzing data for small businesses and tech startups. But beneath that familiar surface, everything had quietly shifted. For the first time in my adult life, I felt true security. No gnawing worry about next month's rent, no silent calculations about whether I could afford a new laptop if mine died. I had options now, leverage, and most importantly, time to think. 3 months slipped by, and as inevitably as a storm creeping over calm water, the world fixated on the story-dominating headlines. Mystery winner still silent on $134 million jackpot. The Seattle Times ran articles, news stations aired speculative segments, and the city buzzed with theories. Who was the winner? Where had they vanished? Why hadn't they claimed the spotlight? That Thursday evening in June 2024, my phone rang. Dad. He rarely called. Texts were his language unless it was a holiday or emergency. I answered. We exchanged the usual pleasantries. Work was steady. Whether it was predictably overcast, I was staying healthy. Then I heard it. Lynette's voice joining the line. They had me on speaker. Dorian, honey, she said lightly, we were just talking about that lottery winner. Can you believe someone in Seattle won all that money and hasn't said a word? Interesting, I replied, keeping my tone flat. Probably smart to stay quiet. That much money changes everything. Oh, absolutely, Dad agreed too eagerly. I mean, what do you even do with that kind of cash? From the background, Henry chimed in. First thing I'd do is buy a house. Get out of this tiny apartment. And there it was. They weren't calling a chat. They were probing. Somewhere in their collective imagination, a suspicion had taken root. Their quiet, self-sufficient son, who never stressed about money. Maybe he knew more than he let on. Well, I said carefully, I imagine whoever won has some big decisions to make. Speaking of big decisions, Lynette cut in, her excitement barely contained. Henry has news. Henry took the phone. I proposed to Sarah last weekend. She said yes. Sarah, his girlfriend of 2 years, a nursing student at Seattle University. A good match for him. Practical. Grounded. Congratulations, Henry, I said. That's wonderful news. Thanks, man. We're thinking fall wedding. Nothing huge, but venue catering, it adds up. He paused, just long enough to make it obvious. We're trying to figure out the budget. And there it was, the true purpose of this call. The breadcrumbs have been gathered. The silent lottery winner in Seattle. The brother who never complained about money. The coincidence too tempting to ignore. If I was the winner, then surely I would want to help. I'm sure you two will figure something out. I said evenly. Sarah seems like a planner. She is, Henry replied, but planning only goes so far on a tight budget. I've been thinking maybe it's time I ask for some family help. Just for something this important. That sounds like a conversation for you and Dad. I answered. Actually, Dad interjected. We were hoping we could talk it through together. Maybe you could come for dinner this weekend. We could discuss how the family might support Henry and Sarah as they start this new chapter. The family. As if I'd ever been included in financial decisions before. As if I'd been consulted when Henry needed tutors, college funds, guitars, cars. This weekend's not great, I said calmly. Busy with client work. The weekend after, then Lynette insisted, irritation tightening her voice. Dorian, this is important. Henry is getting married. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, hearing decades of expectation wrapped in that sentence. Important to them, but for the first time, importance was no longer a one-way street. They had expected immediate enthusiasm, a warm offer to contribute, perhaps even a dramatic confession about a supposed lottery win. But instead, they were met with the same composed, detached responses I perfected over years of being overlooked. Let me check my calendar and get back to you, I said calmly, and in a call with the practiced neutrality of someone who had long since learned not to react. After I hung up, I sat alone in my quiet living room, the glow of the evening light settling over my furniture, and considered the crossroads ahead. I could continue pretending ignorance, letting them speculate endlessly. I could reveal the truth and watch as they scrambled to justify decades of favoritism. Or I could choose a third option, one that neither forgiveness nor confrontation had ever offered. I opened my laptop and drafted an email, not to send immediately, but to keep ready, like a final card waiting to be played. If data analysis had taught me anything, it was this: patterns repeat until they are deliberately broken. My family had established a pattern. Take me for granted, prioritize Henry, and assume I would endure it in silence. They were about to learn what happened when the silent observer finally took control. 2 weeks later, subtlety vanished. Henry called on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, his tone dripping with that pleading edge I remember from childhood, the same one he used when he wanted my help with homework or validation from our parents. "Hey, Dorian," he began, "I've been thinking about our talk with Dad and Lynette, about the wedding and everything." I remained silent. Silence, I'd learned, compels people to reveal more than they intend. "Look," he said, exhaling sharply, "I'll be straight with you. Sarah and I found a venue we love, but it's $15,000 just for space. By the time we add food, photography, everything, we're looking at $50,000 total for the wedding she deserves." I waited. "I know you're doing well," he continued. "Your freelance work seems solid, and you've always been smart with money. I was wondering if maybe you could help us out. Not a gift, unless you want to be, but maybe a loan. We'd pay you back. Over time." "How much?" I asked. "Maybe $25,000. That would cover the venue and photographer. Sarah's parents are handling flowers in her dress, and I've got catering." To Henry, this was an enormous request, a mountain of money he could never realistically gather. To me, it was less than last week's interest. But it wasn't about the figure. It had never been about money. "That's a significant amount," I said evenly. "I know," he replied, voice softening, "but this is Sarah. She's the one. And after everything Mom and Dad did for me, I want to stand on my own feet. Just, with a little help from my big brother." Help from my big brother. The irony hung heavy. For 22 years, I was praised for needing nothing. And now, suddenly, my independence made me their first resource. "I'll think about it," I said. "Really?" He exhaled with relief. "That means a lot, Dorian." I was nervous to ask. 3 days later, Lynette called. "Dorian, honey, I hope you don't mind me reaching out. Henry mentioned the wedding thing." "He did," I replied. "It would mean so much to him. To all of us," she continued smoothly. "Henry's finally found someone who truly makes him happy. Sarah is such a grounded girl. Exactly what he needs. I'm sure she is." There was a pause, then a careful shift. "The truth is, your father and I have been talking. We realize we may have expected too much independence from you over the years. You were always so capable, so self-reliant. Maybe we didn't show enough appreciation for that." This was new. Lynette had never acknowledged anything resembling imbalance before. But I recognized it, not remorse, but strategy. They needed something from me now. "I appreciate you saying that," I answered quietly. "And we've noticed," she continued, "that you seem very comfortable lately, more relaxed about money. Your father mentioned you haven't asked to borrow anything in years. You even picked up the check at dinner last month." There it was, the direct probe. "Freelance work has been steady," I said. "Wonderful. Truly. And if business has been especially good, well, that just makes us even more proud of you. You've always been the responsible one. Maybe now you can help Henry be responsible too." I ended the call with another non-committal promise to consider it. That evening, I finished the email and scheduled it for 9 a.m. Monday morning. When it sent, it landed in all 3 inboxes at once. Regarding Henry's wedding request, it began clinically, a chronological audit of family financial decisions, guitar lessons for Henry, debate team denied for me, tuition paid for Henry, loans for me, car purchase for Henry, lottery ticket joke for me, dates, amounts, everything meticulously noted, not out of vengeance, but pattern recognition. I want to be clear, it read, "I do not resent these decisions. Parents allocate resources based on perceived need. You saw me as self-sufficient and Henry as dependent. That perception shaped 2 decades of choices. Then came the revelation. Last December, you gave me a lottery ticket as a joke. That Ticket won $134 million. After taxes, I manage approximately $72 million. Henry has requested $25,000. This represents approximately 0.03% of my current net worth. The answer is no, not because I couldn't, not because I wouldn't, but because the lesson they taught me, I had learned too well. For 22 years, you taught me to expect no help. Now, I simply return the lesson. I concluded with absolute clarity that I had learned every lesson they unknowingly taught me. Just as my education, career, and financial independence had been mine alone to manage, Henry's wedding was entirely his responsibility. I would not contribute to the ceremony, the honeymoon, or any future request. This decision was final, unwavering, and beyond negotiation. In the email, I included a final, irrefutable detail: a PDF attachment with photocopies of the original lottery ticket, the official announcement of the winning numbers, and the certified documents from the Washington State Lottery. For their convenience and undeniable proof, the file was clearly labeled. After sending copies to all three of them, I turned off my phone, stepped outside, and took a long, calm walk around Green Lake. By the time I returned 2 hours later, my phone was buzzing with 47 missed calls and over 100 messages. The long-standing pattern had finally shattered. Their initial reactions arrived in predictable waves: shock, confusion, and frantic attempts to regain control. My father's voicemail shifted from stunned disbelief, "Dorian, we need to talk immediately," to pleading, "Son, I think there's a misunderstanding," and eventually to pressure, "This is family, Dorian. Family doesn't abandon family." Lynette's messages were soaked in guilt and manipulation. "How can you be so cruel to Henry? He's your brother. Money isn't everything. Love and family should matter more than old grudges." Henry cycled through an entire emotional spectrum in written form. Denial: "There's no way you won that much and hid it from us." Anger: "You're really going to punish me over childhood nonsense." And bargaining: "Forget 25,000. Just help with 15 or 10, anything." I responded to none of it. I had already spoken my truth, and anything further would only dilute it. But I watched, and what I saw was fascinating. Within a week, Henry launched a GoFundMe titled "Help Henry and Sarah Start Their Dream Life." It was carefully worded to invite sympathy without revealing humiliation. We're a young couple trying to plan a meaningful wedding on a humble budget. Every contribution helps. In 2 weeks, it collected $1,247. Meanwhile, whispers spread throughout our extended family and social circles, not because I spoke, but because they could not resist telling the story themselves. Aunt Rebecca called after hearing a heavily edited version from Lynette. She mentioned something about the lottery and you not be able to help. "Are you all right, dear?" I kept my answer simple. Henry's wedding is between him and Sarah. I'm not involved. And similar conversations followed. Cousins, family, friends, even Henry's old college roommate, each with a different version of events. In some tales, I was a cold millionaire abandoning his family. In others, I was a neglected son who'd finally built his own justice. The truth, as always, existed silently between extremes. 6 months later, in February 2025, they held a small ceremony in a community center in Ballard. 50 guests, potluck reception, Sarah's cousin behind the camera. From the photos, it looked simple, heartfelt, almost pure. They smiled. They looked genuinely happy. I wasn't invited. That was perfectly fine. Around that time, I made my first true lifestyle change. I bought a Craftsman house in Portland, not extravagant, but intentional. A sunlit office, a small garden, and most importantly, 280 miles of peaceful distance between me and the chaos. I also established a Thatch Foundation, dedicated to providing scholarships for first-generation college students from blended families. Kids who, like me, learned resilience in silence. My first recipient, Maria Santos, was an 18-year-old whose stepfather had drained her college fund to pay for his biological son's wedding. She planned to work nights and attend community college. I changed her story. Full scholarship to University of Washington, with living expenses included. When she tearfully tried to thank me, I simply said, "Pay it forward someday." Nearly 2 years have passed since that Christmas ticket altered everything. My father still sends birthday cards, each blandly wishing me well. Lynette occasionally likes my LinkedIn posts, her version of peace. Henry and Sarah welcomed a baby girl, Emma, in July. I see her through photos Sarah's mother posts. I follow, not out of longing but curiosity. Patterns matter. Will Emma inherit the imbalance that defined our childhood? Or will Henry finally understand fairness through fatherhood? I hope, quietly, for the latter. Today, I work with nonprofits, using data to help them reach people who slip through the cracks. The salary means little. Purpose matters more. I've started seeing someone too, Jennifer Walsh, once my lawyer, then my advisor, now something calmer, steadier. She never asks about my family, and I never ask about her past. Some histories require silence. Last month, I received an email from Henry, not asking for help, but for something much harder to give, recognition. I realize I got advantages you didn't. I never questioned it. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for how we treated you after the lottery. We assumed you owed us, but never considered what we owed you. He didn't beg. He didn't excuse himself. He simply acknowledged. I haven't replied. I don't know if I will. Some apologies earn forgiveness. Some deserve reflection. Some belong to time alone. But I saved it, filed beside the lottery ticket, the Christmas photos, the artifact of a life rebuilt, because patterns matter. And maybe, just maybe, this is the start of a new one. What I know with certainty is this. That $2 ticket taught me that justice is not always loud, nor cruel. It doesn't always look like revenge. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like building something better. And sometimes, if you wait long enough, justice is simply watching others face the quiet echo of their own choices.